David Fincher is one of the best directors of the last 30 years, and he has a new movie, The Killer, coming out in November, and it was actually kind of soft released in theaters in October. But leading up to the new film, I'm rewatching each of his films in order to prep for my new ranking. And because he is one of these directors that has put out so many great films, you guys usually want to know more about what I think about some of these films than I can put in a mere ranking where I only get to talk about a movie for about 2 minutes. So over here on my second channel, I wanted to put out extra thoughts on some of these movies, my extended ramblings or whatever you want to say about them. And they're not exactly reviews. They're kind of reviews. They have elements of that. And some of that is just kind of my insights, my perspective in different ways. And with a few of these, I actually did videos like this back when Mank came out, but I only put them out as Patreon exclusives. And I thought, since I'm planning on doing this for each of the movies, I might as well just re-release those videos over here on the second channel for everyone to be able to see, rather than having to make 3 additional videos that I have already made. With that said, that's what I'll be doing with The Social Network, Seven, and Zodiac. And here we go. Something big is happening in the world of movies this week, or if you went to go see it in the theater last week or 2 weeks ago, we're finally getting a new David Fincher film. In the entire history of my YouTube channel, David Fincher hasn't put out a new movie, and so it's kind of a pretty big deal, even though it's more low-key than a lot of the stuff that he's done. It's a little bit more for film fans than for a broad audience, but as film fans, as people that watch channels like mine and join on Patreon, thank you so much for doing that, we're getting a new Fincher film. And so in light of that, I've been watching through all the David Fincher films in anticipation of doing a ranking this weekend, and I've tried to do some kind of extended reviews for some of the more popular Fincher films, and even asked for your input through a survey. And with that in mind, you mentioned that you would like me to talk about The Social Network. Let me know what you thought about The Social Network down below in the comment section on YouTube or on Patreon, and let's get started. Now, to me, this is an incredibly interesting film on so many different levels. Right off the bat, it's a David Fincher film, so that's interesting, but the script is from Aaron Sorkin, and they have very different styles, but merging them together, it's pretty cool. Beyond that, it's also about events that I remember. Like, I remember in 2004, maybe early 2005, I was living with 3 guys that were students at the University of Texas, and I remember when the Facebook showed up on the UT campus. I couldn't get a Facebook account because I wasn't a UT student and didn't have a ut.edu email address. So a lot of this stuff that if you're younger, you might not remember the early days of Facebook. I remember being excluded from Facebook and be like, oh man, I want to be a part of that. And this movie explored kind of all the coolness factor to it. It's also interesting that the movie's now 10 years old. And so when the movie comes to an end, it feels like they didn't even go to half a fraction of the story that is the story of Facebook, because so much has even happened since the movie came out, as Facebook became such a dominant part of society. And there's so much more you could tell about Mark Zuckerberg. And then the one that always just blows my mind is that I'm several years older than Mark Zuckerberg. Not a lot, but a little bit older than Mark Zuckerberg. And I'm not even 40 yet. And this movie took place 10 years ago. And so Mark Zuckerberg wasn't even 30 when they made a movie about his life. He was like 26 when the movie came out. And that's just mind-blowing to me. So anyway, as for the film itself, I think it is an absolutely captivating story about what drives people and people pursuing excellence in the different brokenness of people that drive their insanity of sorts. This version of Mark Zuckerberg is such an unlikable human, while you can't take your eyes off of him in another way. So much of that is, of course, Jesse Eisenberg being so good at playing these neurotic characters that are socially awkward, talk too fast, sort of clueless, but it's somewhat sympathetic at the same time because you feel bad for him while he's saying such rude and awful things. And there's something about that that's interesting. Another part to it is also, of course, he has that Aaron Sorkin dialogue to him. So he has all these moments where he's such great zingers and responses to everything in a perfectly Sorkinized way that makes him someone that you can't take your eyes off of while you're like, dude, why can't you back off? Dude, why? Stop talking. Dude, pay attention to the moment. Dude, why are you being so mean to someone that helped you out so much? How can you not see where this is headed? And even beyond that, the Sorkinized side to it of even the idea that so much of what drives him is his insecurity and his desire not to be excluded. So he creates this scenario to where, the opening scene of the movie where he's on this date and the girl that's his girlfriend tells him, like, I just want you to know that you're going to think that girls don't like you because you're a nerd. It's not that. It's because you're a jerk. And then the whole movie plays that out and explores this concept of this guy that is so driven by the fact that people will keep excluding him and that they're getting opportunities that he's not without doing what he needs to do to fix that. He achieves so much, accomplishes so much. He's so successful, but he can't overcome his own hurdles, his own character defects. That's interesting. As you get to the end of it, all these people that are around him, all the friends, burns all the bridges, and he's achieved the world. And he has 500 million friends on Facebook or whatever, and he's lost all of his real friends. There's something about that that's interesting and compelling, and in a lot of ways, it's a tragedy. It's an underdog story while being this tragedy in another sense. And that's when you know you have something special that can have both of those going at the same time. Characters that are so unlikable, but so captivating also. And that's the whole film does that. Beyond that, I mean, everyone is just written to perfection and played to perfection. When I first saw this movie, I didn't know that the twins weren't twins. I just assumed they got twins to play those parts. I didn't know who Armie Hammer was at the time and that there weren't two of him. And it's flawless the way that it does. The two of him. And it's just throughout the whole movie, the shots, the way it's everything about it, the way they play off each other. They have great chemistry as brothers. So it's just one guy talking to nobody, I guess. It's so good. Armie Hammer plays this guy. Guy is great as they have distinct personalities and things about the way they do. They react to Mark Zuckerberg. And they're funny. And there's side to them that is kind of entitled as the rich guys that Mark Zuckerberg's reacting against. And there's a side to them that's very reasonable in the way they're doing things. They just don't realize their privilege in certain ways and getting access to the president. And so you like that they got to talk to the president, but you also like that they got their hands smacked down. Once again, that back and forth of rooting for people while wanting them to get knocked down. It balances that so well. The one character that you don't have a lot of that back and forth with is Andrew Garfield's character, who's just a good guy. He doesn't have kind of the duality that so many of the other characters have. He's just this guy that's trying to do what's best for his friend, and he's loaning him money, and he assumes the best of people. That's his weakness. He knows something's up. He's like, I know that this guy can't control himself. I know he makes the bad choices. You see that so early in the movie when they're doing the face mash, their first prototype thing. And he's like, is this a good idea? Should we shut it down? Because he knows Mark can't control himself. And it's that believing the best, trusting his friend, going along with it. That's what ends up biting him at the end of the film, is that he keeps trusting this person too much that shouldn't fully be trusted. And I think it's just so well written. Another thing that I think works really great here is that balance of Fincher and Sorkin that don't seem like an obvious pairing, but I think they've balanced each other just right. Sorkin, when left to his own devices, gets a little bit too over the top, where everyone is just so eloquent and it gets preachy at times because it's Sorkin on top of Sorkin. And then I think he's great. Even like Trial of the Chicago 7 from earlier this year, I think it's really good, but you can feel Sorkin on Sorkin happening with it. In here, you see that reined in a good bit of, it has all the best of Sorkin, but then some of the edges, it's contained just enough in the box that is Fincher. And then you have all the best of Fincher as this great visualizer that has an amazing style to what he does and can get great performances. Put them together. I wouldn't have thought that would be a great pairing, but it turns out to deliver an amazing result. Another thing that I wasn't on my radar going into this at all, but the score. I loved the score for this movie. And even though it's grounded drama, it has this synthesized score that fits perfectly with kind of the theme of it because it's very computer based. And so it does things that you wouldn't normally see in a drama like this, but it makes sense in the context and fills everything out in a way that fits the movie. All in all, I think that this is a great film. I don't remember if I mentioned it earlier, but I'd only seen it one time before, and that was 9 years ago, 10 years ago when it first came out on DVD. I watched it then and haven't seen it since. And I was thoroughly impressed by it. And having not watched it in a while, it felt sort of like a first viewing of the film. And I don't really have any negatives for it. It's not the most rewatchable film. It's not one that I'm going to like throw on again anytime soon, but that's not a negative for a film. That's just kind of stating certain movies are designed to be rewatched a lot. This isn't a movie that I would rewatch a lot, but it's one that when I rewatch it, it'll be very rewarding. That's likewise what I say about The Shawshank Redemption. Obviously another fantastic film. I would give this one a solid A, potentially. This is David Fincher's best film. Though I don't want to guarantee that just yet because I haven't put that ranking out, and I don't want to spoil it for wherever that might end, but this will be in my top 3 no matter what. Let me know what you thought down below in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for your support over here on Patreon.